look at another Doctor Who Big Finish release this week, as today I'm going to take a look at Classic Doctor's New Monsters Volume 2. I previously reviewed Volume 1 last year. I'm not going to lie, that review got a really good reception, along with the actual box set itself is probably one of the best releases from last year. So this box set had quite a lot to live up to. It really did. Once again, we're on a really high box set for this one. It's on a little bit of a podium currently this series, as every single one so far has had something to contribute. As per usual, much like the previous box set, we do have 4 Classic Doctors going up against some new series monsters. The format is pretty much exactly the same. However, a few things to note. We do have some different Doctors in this one. The 7th Doctor is no longer in this one, unlike the previous box set. However, he's replaced by the 4th Doctor. Considering that this is going to be likely the last Classic Doctor's New Monsters box set that we're ever going to get, I think that it's going to be best to have the 4th Doctor in there, because I think that it's just nice to have our oldest ever Doctor along with the new series monsters. Another thing to note, unlike the previous box set where we had 4 new series monsters, in this one we only have 3, because one of them reoccurs twice. In the 4th Doctor story, we have sort of the opening premise to a certain plot and a certain idea, and the 4th Doctor does that adventure. And then we have the closing episode of the box set with the 8th Doctor during the Time War series that sort of carries on that plot line and sort of reveals the aftermath of what went on. Is something that I really do like, and something of which I kind of wish Doctor Who did a little bit more. So as per usual, in the description below I will leave the link to go and buy this release from the Big Finish website. If you're currently watching at the time of upload, around June, July, August time, this is currently on the pre-order price of £23 for the physical CD and £20 for download. However, if you're watching this review after the 30th of September, I do believe it goes up to the recommended retail of £35, and that is the price that it will be in other stores as well, such as Forbidden Planet. And also, whilst you're on the Big Finish website, then I just recommend listening to the trailer as well. Just seeing the Classic Doctors interact with the new series monsters alone is something that's really enjoyable, so I do recommend checking out the trailer. Taking a look at the stories in this box set now, the first episode of the 4th Doctor is Night of the Vashta Nerada by John Dorney, quickly becoming one of my favourite Big Finish writers, and he's ginger as well, which is a plus. Then we have the second story, Empire of the Racnoss with the 5th Doctor, written by Scott Hancock. I do believe that he is normally a producer. I think that he works a lot on the Torchwood line as well, so it's nice to see him finally writing a story. Then we have the 3rd episode of the series, the 6th Doctor one, The Carrionite Curse by Simon Gurrier. I do believe that Simon Gurrier is the same person who is the creator of Doctor Who spin-off Graceless. Once again, I've listened to that very briefly in the past, so I was really looking forward to what he would bring to Doctor Who, as well as it being the 6th Doctor as well. I was looking forward to that one. And then the closing episode of the box set is Day of the Vashta Nerada by Matt Fitton, once again one of the Big Finish regulars who normally closes the box sets. So it's nice to see for this one we have a really nice selection of people, some people that are new, some people that are old, and generally a really strong writing team, along with a really strong director as well. Much like the previous box set, we have the return of Barnaby Edwards, and he was absolutely excellent for this box set. Once again, he takes his job as director incredibly seriously. He does a really good atmosphere. He really thinks things through. He goes on different themes throughout the different stories and how he feels that certain episodes will interact with each other and the different messages throughout them. And I think that he's definitely probably one of the most passionate Big Finish directors that Big Finish have. Starting off with Night of the Vashta Nerada with the 4th Doctor, I think that this is the perfect way to start the box set. Once again, we do have one of those villains that is rather hard to do in audio. Much like in the previous box set, we did have the Weeping Angels, and they of course don't speak unless they sort of kill somebody and use their voice, which I don't believe, from what I can remember, is something that Fallen Angel did. Much like in this case with the Vashta Nerada, it's something that isn't really very verbal, and in audio it could technically be rather challenging. Big Finish do alter them a little bit and change certain aspects of them to sort of incorporate in a few bits of sound design to make them more like an actual physical creature as opposed to sort of literally just a shadow. They are referred to as rather like a swarm at certain points, so I think the Big Finish are definitely going down the sort of insect route in a way, and sort of a few bits of sound design that make them sound sort of rather cackly to an extent, and they are referred to as a swarm, as I say, at certain points. So I think that is a very effective way to do them. Once again, much like the Weeping Angels, from what I can recall in Doctor Who Series 4, where we had the Vashta Nerada in Silence in the Library, I think that they adapted onto people's voice or something like that. I can remember who turned out the lights, but I can't exactly remember the full details behind that because it's been a very long time since I watched that story. But they didn't go down that route with this one, which is something that I'm rather shocked by, and something that I thought they would have done, because that would have been the easy way. However, Big Finish have not done that. They've not gone and adopted people's voices, they've just gone with the actual Vashta Nerada, and the premise behind this episode, once again, really suits the 4th Doctor. Generally, the Vashta Nerada is a very gothic horror, shadow, dark creature. They are physically dark. 4th Doctor, in contrast, is currently in the Philip Hinchcliffe era of Doctor Who, which is notorious for being rather dark. So basically the idea of the Vashta Nerada and the 4th Doctor, Philip Hinchcliffe style 4th Doctor anyway, being together is pretty much a hand-in-hand thing. I think that it's absolutely perfect. And 4th Doctor in this one, he has a lot of moments where he's rather comedic, but at the same time very serious. There is an excellent part of this one that I absolutely adore, much like in a lot of Doctor Who stories. stories when this happens, it's not a happy ending. Although the Doctor survives, of course he does, it's not the way that you would expect. It's not a winning scenario, it's not something that the Doctor can be proud of, and that is something that I absolutely love. And for that reason, episode 1 of the box set is probably one of my favourites. As a brief summary of the plot for this one, basically the humans have taken over this planet and renamed it Funland, and it is theoretically a giant forest. However, they've wiped it all down and deforestation has took place, and the habitats of the vashta and nerada, as well as the small creatures that they feast on, have basically been destroyed, meaning that the only things that they can eat is of course the humans that have created this massive theme park, and they then turn violent, and then we have them trying to take over a spaceship near the very end to of course go back to Earth. And I think that that generally is a rather simple plot. It's something of which that we have on Earth today: deforestation, the destruction of different habitats and things like that, incorporated to that alien idea. And yeah, I really like this one for that. Moving on to Empire of the Racnoss now by Scott Hancock. This episode had something about it that really did suit the Fifth Doctor. I think that they've really got down to a T the idea of contrasting different villains with different Doctors, such as in the previous one where we had the Sixth Doctor with the Jadoon. It fit incredibly well. The Seventh Doctor with the Sycorax, it was something that worked very well. And then in this one we have the Racnoss, which is an area of Doctor Who that I wouldn't really consider as something that sort of deserved a return. I thought that the Runaway Bride was a thing that happened, it happened once, and that was it. However, recently I've been exposed to other materials, such very recently when I reviewed the Myths and Legends book, Epic Tales from Alien Worlds, and that had the Racnoss in as well, and the Dark Times and the way that they affected the Time Lords. And very much in this one, we have the Fifth Doctor being plummeted into the Dark Times, where we have him with some older Gallifreyans from the Dark Times, and then we have the Racnoss, as I said, during sort of their civil war between each other, between the Empress and the Emperor, as well as the Consort. I think the way to sum this one up is basically making the Racnoss a little bit more human, and that is something that I never normally like when it comes to Doctor Who. However, this story basically has a bit of Jeremy Kyle, sort of. We have sort of the Empress, who is a bit grumpy because the Emperor has stolen all of her eggs, of course the spider's eggs, and it's her last ever breed that she can have because she's of course aging, and he's then using these children against her in the own civil war. So basically he's using her own children to fight against her. And then we have the Consort, which is in human terms basically the rebound from the Empress, and I really like this because it's basically, as I say, a bit of a family dilemma, family feud with them, and once again it really does actually build on the Racnoss relationship. And it turns out that at the very end we do have this revelation where the Empress isn't all innocent as she seems, and we have the Emperor then being quite innocent as well, but it turns out that Emperor isn't being as innocent as he seems. The Consort, something happens to him, let's just say that. Something happens to the Emperor as well, and then by the very end the Fifth Doctor does something to the Empress. So basically, once again, nobody really wins except the eggs of the Empress's children to an extent, that family that we've got left. Due to a character called Elena in this one, played by Lisa Kay, who is a Gallifreyan from the Dark Times, and by the very end of the story, we have her going off with the Fifth Doctor. So that is sort of left open for more adventures in the future. She's just getting taken back to Gallifrey. She doesn't want to go back, and she sort of says to the Fifth Doctor she doesn't want to go back. So that's sort of an open area for the future that I'm pretty sure the Big Finish are going to pick up on at some point, no doubt in the Big Finish monthly range or something like that. Moving on to the Sixth Doctor episode of the box set, it is of course the Carrionite Curse, written by Simon Gurrier. Now his name has been cropping up more and more when it comes to Doctor Who in the past few months. However, it just so happens for Big Finish that I've never in fact reviewed something from what I can remember that he is in fact involved in. It just so happens that the ones that I've been reviewing sort of dodge his episodes rather oddly, so it's nice to finally be sat down and reviewing something he's in fact been credited in. And he's a writer that I think is very interesting. I think that he's a perfect example of a fan service writer, and I'm aware that sounds a little bit of a bad term. However, he is a fan service writer done incredibly right. Basically, he knows his stuff when it comes to Doctor Who. He knows what he's doing, and he is definitely, I'd say he's a fan of the show quite a lot. I would say he's probably a very strong fan, because he can just be writing a normal episode, and then he can go and throw in a reference. It can be a very obvious reference, a very minute reference to a certain area of Doctor Who, no matter what era it is in, and it just works so well. He can get away with it because it fits with the actual plot, and it's something that I really do like, and I respect him for that. And this episode is no different, because I started this one in a very happy mood. I love the way it was going on, as I say, with the very clownish stuff to start with, the Sixth Doctor, and the fact that it was a Colin story alone was something that I was very excited about, and it was going along all happy and jolly. Then all of a sudden we meet the witches, which is something that is a little bit darker, and I thought, oh, that's a little bit more, oh, not as happy as before, you know, so we sort of still have this happy flow going all the way through. And then we meet this priest that just so happens to be a book collector, and the Sixth Doctor is flicking through his library and comes across a book about vampires and witches or something like that, and it's written by none other than Professor George Lightfoot. And at that point, when I heard that name, it just stabbed me right here, because I've not covered this in a video yet on this channel. I was thinking about doing it, and I may still do at some point. Basically, if you're a big Finnish fan, you will of course know that recently we have lost Trevor Baxter. Unfortunately, he has of course died, and he does play Professor George Lightfoot, and as you're all probably aware, I absolutely adore J. Gunn Lightfoot. If anything, it overtakes Doctor Who in my audio loving. I absolutely love it, and very nearly it's taking over Doctor Who as a whole. I think it's probably one of my favourite pieces of media in the whole entire world. It honestly became much more of an audio drama to me. It became something that I could rely on, that I just loved to listen to over and over. It was something that I loved and adored, and I still will regardless. And when I just felt that in the episode, it's something that caught me off guard. It really was, because of course he's gone now. It really did hit me, I'm not even gonna lie, because he's probably, it's hit me more than any other Doctor Who passing that we've ever had in my whole life. That reference in the story, considering that his book and the book that he written, it fits George Lightfoot incredibly well. I could imagine him writing a book. It was something that we could imagine from the later halves of the J. Gunn Lightfoot era. And as I said, that bit of fan service in there was something that really did mean a lot to me in the story. And the fact that they used his book throughout the episode to in fact help what was going on, and then at the very end it was a pivotal part as well. I just loved it. And yeah, I'm going to stop talking about Trevor now, because I may do a video on it in the future, a pivotal thing. So if you're a J. Gunn Lightfoot fan, then I really do recommend this for that reason alone. Witches were very prominent in historical England. It's something that we've always had. However, we don't really have it in modern day. It's something that we don't really see that much, especially in media. So in this episode, I have an episode set in sort of 1980s, 1990s Birmingham. It's something that doesn't really fit the setting. However, this is sort of more a confined village, so it does still sort of fit that format. And that previous episodes where we've had the idea of sort of following up, much like saying Fallen Angel, I always got the impression that we already sort of are expected to know the Weeping Angels. However, in this one, it sort of makes it act like an actual first ever story. So we have a few references to the Shakespeare Code, and we have a very interesting scene at the very end where the Doctor says, I could probably deal with them a little bit more sufficiently in the future when I inevitably meet them again. He is aware that he's going to meet them at some point. He only finds out that they are the carrionites at the very end of the episode, and we have him defeating them in a very Sixth Doctor way. Once again, very humourful. He basically defeats them by using long and confusing words. It's a very Sixth Doctor-y, and I loved it for that. Once again, that was something that picked me up at the very end of the story. Introduced to a character called Katie Bell, who's played by Maya Sondi, who in the behind the scenes, Colin did in fact say that he loved how she was in the episode, and she loved the relationship that they had. I do believe, from what I can remember, she was playing a very young character, probably I'd say maybe 16, 17 at a push, probably well, she's a goth to an extent. She's a little bit of a outcast of the rest of the village, as we see at the very first half of the story, and they bounce across each other very well, and the way that they have and sort of defeat them together, I think that was very nice the way that they did it, and it would be nice to see more of her in the future. But that said, we have a lot of Colin going on in his era at the moment. We have Flip and Constance Clark together, so the last thing we need is probably another companion out there. But who knows, maybe they could do a timey-wimey thing in the future and bring her back. I don't know, I doubt it, but still, I think that the point still stands. She was a very nice one-story companion. We also have a few scenes where the Doctor goes into the TARDIS library as well, which is something that was very nice to see. We have a few Harry Potter references in there as well, and a few bits of wizardry and witchery, which I think if you're interested in that, then this is definitely an episode for you. We have bewitching, we have different spells, and I think that, as I say, if you are a fan of that type of stuff, then you'll probably get a little bit more out of this one than other people. I think that once again delves into that classic Doctor's New Monsters format, however, changes it, alters it, and does something different with it. And for that reason, as I say, it's probably my second favourite of the box set. And Colin's just on top form, seriously. Moving on to the final episode of the box set now, it is of course the day of the vashta nerada. Much like the previous box set, we did have an episode of the 8th Doctor that was set during the Time War, and you can assume that it's probably 2 episodes that will start off the Time War series that we are being introduced to later this year. I do believe in October or November or something like that. But much like the previous one, I feel that both of these stories will gain a little bit more respect from me and a little bit more from other people as well once those episodes have in fact being released later on this year and the next few years as well when we get that annual box sets from the Time War. I just think at the moment the message that they have behind them is a little bit wobbly, but I still like it. I think at the very end we always have a little bit of a sit down and reflect moment. Sitting down and Cardinal Lystra says how he can come back to Gallifrey, however the Doctor kind of refuses. But the good thing for this one, and what I'm going to focus on for this one, is that idea of the aftermath. Something I always think of when it comes to Doctor Who. That idea of once an episode ends, what goes on after that? How does this civilization build on? What does it do to change its ways? Does it learn from the lessons that's happened in that story? Does it actually impact the people that are on that planet? And this one very much bases on that idea. We don't necessarily return back to Funland or anything like that, but instead we return to the idea of the vashta nerada and how they have now been genetically mutated in benefits of the Time War. And I think that is something that is very Gallifreyan. We've seen it before. Theoretically, the Gallifreyans using living weapons against other people, and I think that is very much prominent with things such as the Moment. And with this, we have the vashta nerada being sort of self-trained in a way. We have a few references to Pavlov's dog. We have a few people that are sort of researching the vashta nerada, and they are changing what they like to eat. Instead of eating raw meat, they are sort of training them to eat Dalekanium, so the Time Lords can set the vashta nerada on the Daleks and basically cause some damage where they theoretically probably eat the metal casing or something like that. I don't particularly know how it would work, but this episode proves that you can't exactly train the vashta nerada because they're still good to like what they used to like, and they're still good to, in fact, at the very end, you can't control them because they're shadows. Once you let them free, that's it. They're just going to cause havoc. And with this, once again, it bases on that idea that is quite dark and shows how the Time Lords are very one-sided, and it sort of reflects the Time Lords as a little bit of an enemy. We have the return of Cardinal Lystra, as I say, with Jacqueline Pierce, which is something that I very much do like. Of course, if you've seen the War Doctor releases or Doom Coalition, you will, of course, already know who Jacqueline Pierce as Cardinal Lystra is. She is absolutely excellent. I do really like her. I love her relationship that she has with the Doctor. And I think that, as I say, it definitely shows the Time Lords not as this benevolent race at all. It shows them as, in a way, a little bit of an enemy. A race that is trying to do absolutely anything possible to try and get these Daleks off the face of the universe. And I think that is, as I say, going to be something that is prominent in the Time War box sets as well. We're also introduced to a different version of vashta nerada called the Nerada Vashta. Of course, the vashta nerada are a character that lurks in the darkness, as they are sort of based around shadows. The Nerada Vashta are things that basically lurk in the light, meaning that you've got the vashta nerada that are there in the shadows and the Nerada Vashta that are there in the light, meaning that when you're on a spaceship, there isn't exactly that much places to hide because you're basically screwed, as they're absolutely everywhere. And once again, this takes the idea of the vashta nerada and then changes it and manipulates it, and I really respect Matt Fitton for that. But they're diverse to put them in several different scenarios, meaning now you've got the vashta nerada and now you've opened them up to many other scenarios that you can have with them. I do like the first one a lot more. As I say, with the Fourth Doctor, it's probably one of my favourites of the box set, if not the favourite of the box set, along with the Carrionite Curse. This one still bases around the idea of life and death. A few people do still die, and the vashta nerada are still quite a deadly creature. However, not as deadly as the original story. So I still think on this part especially, John Dorney may have had it up there a little bit more than Matt Fitton in this one. That's really it for this episode. I think that much like the previous one with the Sontarans, whatever that one was called, I feel that I may need to return to this story along with the other one when the Time War series is released, and I think that then that may open up this episode a little bit more, give it a little bit more context, and sort of make me respect it a little bit more. Even though I still like it, I think that still the 8th Doctor ones are probably my least favourites of these box sets so far. Yeah, that's really it for Classic Doctors New Monsters Volume 2. Once again, a very solid release. I really do like this one. I really do recommend it as well for Classic Series fans and new series fans. If you've been a Big Finish listener that only gets the new series stuff, then I recommend this one more than any. It is a perfect bridge between the Classic Series if you've not delved into the Classic Series of Doctor Who on Big Finish, or in general as well. If you've not seen the Classic Series on TV, this is a very good way to sort of phase you in. The stories are the 1 hour format, give or take a few minutes, which is the good thing. If an episode deserves more time or needs a little bit more time for development, it can be granted that, which is the good thing about Big Finish. I think that once again, much like the previous box set, this goes and develops something and changes it, and considering that this is probably going to be the last ever Classic Doctors New Monsters box set that we are going to get, it's been a very solid run, and I think that generally the team behind it have done an incredible job. As I say, Barnaby with directing has visualised in our heads incredibly well what his message was for the series, and I think these are possibly some of the best Big Finish episodes that I've listened to for the sound design and the directing perspective, along with the actual scripts as well, of developing this creature further and everything else. Every single villain that has been used within these box sets, the Weeping Angels, even the Sontarans down to an extent, although that was probably a weak usage, the Racnoss, the Jadoon especially as well. I think that generally they've gone and developed them, and it has been a perfect choice of villains and monsters that they can use. So yeah, I highly recommend this one, and I'm going to be shocked if this box set once again isn't up there in my top 4 at least for this year. Of course, we still have quite a long way for this year left. However, I still think it's definitely up there, and I really, really enjoyed it. It goes and does something. And that referencing of Trevor Baxter as Professor George Lightfoot alone in the Carrionite Curse is something that I respect this box set even more for. I just think that it is this episode and this box set as a whole delves into stuff, and I think that if you just listen to this, everybody is going to get something out of it that somebody else won't. And I think that that makes the box set rather personal, and for that reason, I highly recommend it. Probably above all from everything that I reviewed this year. If anything, it might be one of my favourites so far. So yeah, highly, highly recommended. I guess that's it for this review. I guess I'll see you all in my next one, whatever that may be it being a product review, other random video, or another Big Finish review. I'm presuming that the next Big Finish one will probably be the August monthly range release, whenever that is out, the Blood Furnace, and then whatever else comes out this month. I can't exactly remember, but yeah, I think it may be quite a month for Big Finish, and then it gets all hectic again in September, annoyingly, when I'm not as free, unlike August. But yeah, we'll get to that when it happens. So yeah, thanks for watching. I shall see you all in the next video. Bye for now.